Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, tonight's shir, the continuation of Torah Memtes, is sponsored anonymously as well as B'schus, the neshama of Yonasan Avraham ben Harav Shaul. The neshama should have an aliyah, and it should be Mashpia Shefatov Me'lamala for Klal Yisrael. Okay, so we're continuing with Torah Memtes, and there's really no time to waste because this is a teaching that demands more than the amount of time we're going to give it, but we're trying our best just to move through the first defense of the Torah, which is reading the words. When we can read the words of the Torah, we break down one of the barriers that blocks us from entering into the inside of the Torah. When we read the Torah again, we break down another barrier. Again, we break down another barrier. Looking at the Tefillah is breaking down another barrier. Looking at Likkutei Halachos is breaking down another barrier until a person is finally able to daven about the insight that is emergent from the Torah. But to summarize up until this point, we've spoken about how just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to remove his infinite light so as to reveal his compassion upon others, and he needed to create a vacant space and then refill that vacant space with the light of compassion, so too the individual needs to create their own world. And in order to create their own world, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu needed to make a tzimtzum, so too we have to make a tzimtzum, which is the tzimtzum in our hearts. And when we make a tzimtzum in our heart, that's like HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kavyachol being mitzamsem, his infinite light, because the heart of a Yid is also burning with an infinite desire towards that which can't be reached. And in order to actualize anything in a real, manifested way, we have to constrain ourselves and contain ourselves and maintain application within limitation. And it's in that place that we can then fill our worlds. So the world takes place in the empty space that we carve into our heart. And then it's a mixed bag. Now we have the option of how we're going to fill that empty space. Are we going to fill the empty space with the illumination of good thoughts, machshavas tovos, which are the Yetzer HaTov, and to uncover the possibility of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu more? Or are we, heaven forbid, going to pollute the new Chalal HaPanui, the new open space, an empty space within the heart, with pollution which comes from Machshavos Ra'os, which is the Yetzer Hara? So the moment that we create a space within our hearts, it becomes an aspect of choice as to how we are going to fill that world. Will it be a big world of illumination, which is the Hay, which is the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, or is it going to be a world of concealment, which brings about more negativity? And so that's what we are looking at when we come to Os Beis. When we open up this place in the heart, this is the Bechina, Zeh Bechinas La'avdo L'Bechol Levavchem, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all of our heart. Ezehu Avoida Shebelev. What is the work of the heart? This is Tefillah. So what does it mean that the work of emptying out the heart and creating an empty place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu could reveal himself is associated with Tefillah? Ki Tefillah hu bechinas Malchus David, because Tefillah is the aspect of Malchus, which is the aspect of David HaMelech, as the Pasuk says, Va'ani Tefillah. David HaMelech identified himself with Tefillah. The Midah of David is the Midah of Malchus. It appears to be empty. It is a vacant space. It's a void. It's the recognition of emptiness and deficiency that then becomes the receptacle to draw down more light. So just as we have to make a tzimtzum in our heart, we also have to enter into the act of tefillah, which is creating a tzimtzum in order to draw down more light. Ikar ha-tefillah tali believe. The main acknowledgement of our deficiency, which is the act of tefillah, is dependent upon the heart, meaning to say sheyasim kol libo aleha, that we have to place all of our heart on the intentionality of the words, shelo yihiyeh bebechinas besvasam kavduni velibam rachak mimeni, so that we shouldn't, God forbid, be in the process of lip service with a heart that is distant from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the ikar place of building a world, which is the process of tefillah, is within the heart itself. Because tefillah shebelev hu bechinas hisgal. When I daven within my heart, meaning to say, when I open up that point of deficiency within myself, which is the beginning of prayer. Prayer is dependent upon the recognition of deficiency. Hakaras hachisaron, as the Moharan describes fundamentally in Nesiv Ha'avoda in the name of the Baal Ha'ikarim, that the purpose for tefillah ultimately is so that the creature should recognize that he is creature and not creator. It is meant to bring us back face to face with our inherent deficiency, not because there's something wrong, but because we are creatures, and by definition, the creature is not the creator. That recognition is the beginning of prayer. Zak Beis Yaakov, that an intoxicated individual is not allowed to pray. Why can't an intoxicated individual pray? Because intoxication is a state where everything feels perfect, where everything feels as if it's exactly the way it needs to be, and everything appears like a straight plane, as Chazal tell us. Zak the Heilige Beis Yaakov, that's the polar opposite of prayer. Prayer is the encounter with the deficiency. And the tefillah that accesses that halal, that emptiness, that enables a new revelation, is the tefillah in the leiv, which is the aspect of the revelation of Malchus within the vacant space, within the midos, within our own heart, which is where the worlds are going to take shape. So, Zak the Heilige Rebbe in Os Gimel. V'zeh bechinas hey. The aspect of tefillah in the heart, of making an empty place within the heart and drawing down illumination, is the aspect of the letter Hey. That's Malchus. Why? Ki dalit haisa vis chazaret v'na'aseh. It's brought down into Kuni Zohar. It's also brought down in the Tzafrin Ditzniusa that Hey in the beginning was a Dalid. First, it started off as a Dalid, and then it became a Hey. So we see that this notion of the Hey is something that is growing out of the Dalid. The Dalid is the empty state. The Dalid is Dalus. The Dalid is impoverishment of Malchus. The Leisle Magar Meklum. It has nothing of its own. That's the first stage, making the tzimtzum in the heart. Dalus, impoverishment, nothing. Once I make that impoverishment and that engraving and that halal in my heart, and I recognize my deficiency, then I can draw down the yud, which makes the Dalid into a hey, and the yud is the machshava tova. So the secret of transforming the halal hapanui in our hearts, which is the os dalid, which represents impoverishment, is drawing down the yud, which is a machshava tova, to be megala, the light within that halal. V'zeh bechinas hey. This is the element of hey. Ki dalis haisa. In the beginning, it was a dalid. V'it chazares v'nasa hey. And only afterwards was it transformed into a hey. Ki dalis havias. What does it mean that originally it was a dalid? Lashon dala v'aniya. The os dalid represents impoverishment and destitution. It has nothing of its own. It's that feminine space of receptivity without any expression. Hainu kishem mitamtem libo betipshus. When my halal hapanui is polluted by negative thinking, that world that I just have opened up for myself, that new place of encounter with God, has gone from a state of potentially bringing me closer to God, and it has descended down into a place that is now polluted by stupidity and negative thoughts. And that's when it remains a dalid. Ve'ein ani elabedas. And the impoverishment that the individual experiences here is not an impoverishment of materiality. It's an impoverishment of the mind. The mind doesn't know how to think properly. That's the truest form of impoverishment. Machshavas ra'os is impoverishment. Someone who is stuck in pessimism, someone who is stuck in the impossibility of uncovering nikudos tovos, that's the truest form of poverty. Ukishemakadesh machshavaso, but when a person transforms that negative thought of the Yetzer Hara into a positive thought of the Yetzer HaTov, and we fill that empty space in the heart with illumination, as V'leis kedusha pachos me'asara, we're makadesh our thought, and kedusha is inherently connected to the level of 10, which is the light of chachma, which is the os yud, because chachma is a whole inyan. A unit of 10 represents something whole. It's a minyan, it's the spheros, it's the 10 ma'amaros, it's the 10 dibros. The yud represents the smallest measure that contains within itself all of the properties necessary for revealing something. The yud is the beginning of all expression. Yud is the same osios as dio, as ink, because no matter what letter you're writing, the first instantiation of ink upon the page is the imprint of the yud. Everything starts with the yud. Yud chachma keduma. It's the origination of thought. So when we draw down the yud, which is the fullness of positive thinking, in the aspect of the yud, we're mamshech it into the dalid, and it becomes a hey. So Rabbi Nachman is saying you have this empty space that you create, this halal apanu to create a new world, and then God forbid a person pollutes that new world with negative thinking, and it becomes a world of impoverishment, of destitution of the mind, incapable of seeing goodness. And our job then is to be makadesh machshava, to start thinking good thoughts, machshavas tovos, to fill that void, and then that dalid becomes a hey. Ukeshem mekim hatfila es bechinas malchus. And when a person has properly transformed the impoverishment, the negative thinking that is filling that void in the heart right now, and they have replaced it with actual prayer, which has become the revelation of real malchus in the secret of la'avdoi b'chol levavchem, of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all of my heart, of transforming the Yetzer Hara into the Yetzer HaTov and filling that void. So at that point, that type of avoida, hi ha'oila. This is the oila korban. This is the offering that goes up. And we have to remember, in Torah Yud Beis and Tinyana, Rabbi Nachman associates the ola with the secret of ayeh, of crying out from the Chalal HaPanui to draw down the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is exactly what he's describing here as well. It's the secret of the ola. When we're able to fill that empty space in the heart with positive thoughts, it's the aspect of the ola. It goes all the way up. In the aspect of mi zos ola, mi im zos ola. So this is why we're learning this Torah this week. Rabbi Nachman is saying when a person is capable of properly praying and fulfilling the emptiness of their heart with the sight of meaning, what we're doing there is we're accessing the unity of the levels mi and zos. Mi and zos. Mi zos ola. What does it mean to unify the levels of mi and zos? Mi is bina. The world of bina is the world of mi. Mi is gematria 50. It's the nun sha'arei bina. The Zohar Kadosh refers to as bina as the ability to ask who, not what, but who. It's the awareness that mi bara ela, someone has created this. Elokim, the name Elokim is mi and ela, who and these. When a person says mi bara ela, who created these things, that awakening to the knowledge that this thing came from someplace, that is the awakening of Bina within the mind. It's the questioning posture that doesn't know an answer, but it knows the answer is deeply embedded within the simple fact that I have a question. In the world of Bina, the question is the answer itself. The fact that I'm asking is what reveals to me that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there, but it still remains hidden. Zos, on the other hand, is Malchus. But Zos Yavo Aron El Kodesh. Zos is something revealed. Zos Chanukah. What is Chanukah? It's this. Zos is the revelation of something present, which is Malchus. Now, these two elements of Bina and Malchus are the two feminine principles within the expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light in this world. First, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself in the Yud, which is Chachma. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Metzamsem conceals the light of that Yud with the Hey, which is Bina. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends down more light, which is the Vav, which is their Anpin. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals the second Hey, which is the secret of Malchus. So the first Hey and the second Hey are Bina and Malchus, the mother and the daughter, Leah and Rachel. And at first glance, it appears that they're separate. But in the secret of fulfilling the malchus and the emptiness of the heart with positive thoughts is drawing down Bina into malchus and refining that potential space of emptiness to reveal the unification of Bina and malchus, of Leah and Rachel, of imagination and Dibur. And let's look at the words of Rabbi Nachman here, because he's going to not spend too much time explaining it, but he's going to explain the mechanism that's taking place here. When a person is able to awaken tefillah properly, in the aspect of their malchus, and to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all of their hearts, this is the element of the oila korban. In the aspect of mi zois oila, because why? What does the oila represent? The oila represents mi and zos. Who is it that is ascending upwards? Mi im zois oila. Zok the heilige Zohar Kadosh. It's the ascendancy of mi and zos, the unification of Yerushalayim Shalmala and Yerushalayim Shalmata, of Bina and Malchus. Meaning to say, these are two batim. These are the two houses developed by Shifra and Pua, Malchus and Bina. Leah and Rachel, the two orientations to the feminine counterpart of concealment in our lives. There's the Beta Ilah and there's the Beta Tata. There's the ascendant house, which is Bina, which is Leah, which is removed from grasp, Alma de Iskasia, a world of concealment. And there's the Beta Tata, which is the lower expression of femininity, which is the secret of Malchus, which is the secret of Rachel, which is the secret of Alma de Iskalia. Sheyesh l'shneihem aliyah. When I can properly refine my tefillah and I can fill the void in my heart with a newfound insight and illumination, I am bringing an aliyah not only to Malchus that is being filled, but I'm also bringing an aliyah to Bina, because like we said at the beginning of this Torah, the truest way to draw down Machshavos Tovos is the Chachma Shebelev. Like we said, it's not only Chachma, it's Bina that's doing the work. Bina is the light of Tshuva. Bina is the way that we reorient ourselves and we reawaken the potency that rests within our experiences. Sheyesh l'shneihem aliyah, they both ascend. Kilo avo be'ir ad dekirbecha kadosh. As the pasuk says, that the Gemara says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will not enter into the city until it's holy down there. Chazal say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu swears, so to speak, I will not enter into Yerushalayim Shalmala until you rectify Yerushalayim Shalmata down there. Meaning to say that Bina the higher level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealing positive thoughts and machshavos tovos into our hearts to fill our malchus, is dependent upon the lower work that we do, which is the malchus itself. First, we have to rectify malchus. First, we have to deal with the rachel experience. First, we have to make the opening to create a space of finding HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then, when we enter into that place of malchus, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do is he's going to send down the illumination of Bina, which are machshavos tovos, which are the chachma shebelev, which enables us to then have an aliyah to both of those places, Yerushalayim Shalmala and Yerushalayim Shalmata. Zok the Heilige Rabbi Nosson, who adds in parentheses here, what's the parish of what Rabbeinu is saying here? Ki Rabbeinu Zachorna Lebracha Darshu. Chazal have darshaned on this pasuk, Bikirbecha Kadosh Le'avo Be'ir, meaning to say that only when it's holy down there in the realm of Malchus, then I'll enter into the ear, which is the secret of Bina. Nishba HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a swear, Shelo Yichnas B'Yerushalayim Shalmala Ad Shi'abani Yerushalayim Shalmata, that he's not going to enter into Yerushalayim Shalmala, which is the secret of Bina, until we enter into the place of Yerushalayim Shalmata, which is the secret of Rachel. V'isa b'kesvei Arizal, and the Arizal explains as follows: Shakhavana al pisoid hu. What's the explanation in accordance with the secret teachings of Pnimius HaTorah? That Bina is ima ila. That Bina, Yerushalayim Shalmala, the machshava tova within the chachma shebelev that fills the world with positivity and light. That's the secret of Yerushalayim Shalmala. Bina ima ilah, beta ilah. That's the higher house. Hi bechinas Yerushalayim Shalmala. That's the ascendant form of Yerushalayim. The Malchus, but Malchus is the Beit HaTata, is the lower house. Hi b'chinus Yerushalayim Shalmata. That's the element of Yerushalayim down here. She'ein hayichud shalamala, the yichud above in the realm of Bina, which is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mashpia shefa toiva through the chachma shebelev down to fulfill our worlds. That's the element of the aliyas beisa ilah, the ascendancy of the higher house, where I can utilize my Bina properly to fill my new world. Nishlam, it's only filled and completed. Ad shenivnev nishla b'chinas Malchus. It only is able to express itself fundamentally when we have completed the lower task of creating Malchus. It's a profound thing. Adrabah, Ibcha Mistabra. How could it possibly be that Elyonim Lamata v'Tachtonim Lamala? How could it be that the work of Bina is dependent on the work of Malchus, that the entrance into the Yichud Ilah is dependent on the entrance into the Yichud Tata? But this is the secret, that it's dependent upon the human being's engagement with the creation of their world, of the engraving within the heart, of the tzimtzum that we make in our heart, which is the prerequisite for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to send down Shefa into our hearts. Even the awakening towards creating the tzimtzum comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but nevertheless, the rule of engagement is that we have to create an awakening from below in order to awaken an emergence from above. Even though above is higher than below, somehow, some way, the secret of Pnimius HaTorah is that even though lower is higher, higher is dependent upon that which is lower. It's dependent upon our activity. We say this every Friday night in the moment when Bina and Malchus are meeting, when we say, Ki gavna de'inan mesyachten la'ela be'echad oif hachi yisyachedes latata baraza de'echad, lemeheve echad be'echad. Meaning, just as there's a unification above, so too there's a unification below. And not only that, but the unification above cannot take shape unless it's done through the emergence of the unification below. This is the radical secret at the heart of Avodas Hashem, that even though we are far lower than anything imaginable, nevertheless we are far more significant than we can ever imagine, specifically because of how low we are. And that's the secret of Bina being mushlam al yedei Malchus, that the Beta Ilah is only taken care of fundamentally when we create a Malchus in our hearts. Shehi b'chinas aliyas beta tata ayin sham. V'zeu masha kasav Rabbeinu. And this is what Rabbi Nachman means when he says, Mi im zois oile, that when we daven properly and we fill the emptiness of our hearts with goodness, there's a unification of mi, of bina, im zos, with malchus, and both of them go up. Ki bina liba, because bina is the heart. Bina is the heart. Bina is the machshava shebelev. Bina is the herhure tshuva. Bina is the awakening to the fact that something needs to be fixed. Bina is the awakening to the realization that I need to fill my experience with something right now. That's the bechina of the beta ilah. That's the higher level of consciousness. Bechinas mi, the element of who, where I look upwards and I can't grasp it because of its distance. But malchus is the bechina of the besa tata, the lower house. Bechinas zos, something that is graspable, something something that is revealed. Va'al yedei bechinas elu hanizkar la'el, and as a result of all of these elements that we just discussed that are referred to in this Torah, meaning to say all of the process of emptying the heart and drawing down more insight, al yedei zeh yesh l'shnei habatim elu aliyah. As a result of this, both the Bina and the Malchus are going to ascend. Through my creation of a new world, by hallowing out my heart in the secret of Libi Chalal Bekirbi, which is the secret of my engagement with Zos and Malchus, that is going to create the awakening of Machshava Tova that can come from Bina to fill my heart and create a new world of fulfillment and power and tshuva and illumination. Al yedei zeh yesh l'shnei batim ha'elu aliyah, shem beta ilah v'beta tata. These are the secret of mi imzos. Mi imzos. Who with what? Who with this? Meaning, who is the implication that something is distant from me, and zos, this is the notion that something is close to me. And it's the unification of both of them. Hainu, al yedei shemitzamsem or hislavos libo, meaning to say, when a person is mitzamsem, the intensity and the burning desire that saturates their heart to the degree that there can be nothing else that takes shape there. Shelo yislahev yoter midai, that we don't allow our hearts to yearn more than they theoretically should. Why? So that we can actually begin to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in an orderly and measured way. And a person refines their thoughts to only think positive thoughts and no negative thoughts. Rather, only to think positive thoughts, which is the element of the Yetzer Tov, which is the element of the Chachma Shebelev, meaning the Chachma that's Megala within the Bina that then goes down into Malchus. That through the positive thoughts we engage in the tzimtzum to create the frameworks and the moods and the lenses through which we're going to create a reasonable form of avodas Hashem, which is the development of the midos and the tzimtzum. And then, as a result of my tzimtzum, as a result of stepping out of that intensity of the heart and being metzamse myself and descending down into malchus, which appears to be lower than the illumination of the heart, in fact, it's the descent away from the saturation of the heart that is going to allow for the creation of a new world. Because it's only when I'm metzamse my heart and I give way for malchus to take shape, which appears to be concealed, it's only there that I'm going to be able to be makabel ol malchus shemayim in a real way. Va'az yesh aliyah lebechinas malchus, and then malchus has the ability of going up, and that's the secret of the Beis HaTata. And it's only when we're mashlim the Beis HaTata, the lower part of ourselves, which paradoxically seems to be so much lower than the intensity of the heart in Bina, but nevertheless is the true place where Bina can actually actualize itself. Azai daika oila gam Beis Ilah. It's specifically in the counterintuitive notion that it's specifically when I complete my work down here, that the work above will be completed, which is a very counterintuitive notion that the Jews know very well. That aspect of Bina Liba, because in truth, and here Rabbi Nachman is hinting to a very, very deep secret, which is that the reason that there is going to be this inherent relationship and connectivity between Bina and Malchus, and why the association of Bina is also going to have an impact on Malchus. This is because ultimately Bina and Malchus are the same expression. They're just being applied in two different ways. This brings us directly in line with Leah and Rachel, that Leah and Rachel are ultimately two parts of the same singular expression, and both of them are fundamentally necessary. And because they're both connected, we go to the lowest part of it, and then from the lowest part of it, we access the highest part of it. But here, Rabbi Nachman is hinting to a big secret that on the highest level, it really should be that Rachel contained all of the children of Leah as well. That's the way things should have been prior to the Chet of Eitz Hadas. That all there was meant to be is a Rachel Gedola. Malchus was meant to contain within itself the illumination of Bina. As a result of the Chet, there needed to be a period, and Leah and Rachel were separated, and Bina and Malchus were separated, and now there appears to have to be this whole secondary circuitous route of drawing down the unity with Bina instead of the unity with Malchus, because otherwise Bina, Leah, Eina Leah Rachos is going to be ignored. But in truth, and what's going to be Niskala in the future is that both of them are fundamentally necessary, because Be'emes, they're both one. And that b'shoresh ha'inyanim, Rachel Hagadoila is koila Leah within her. Levar ha'inyan k'tzat. And to explain the matter a little bit, tzrichim lachzor levar ha'inyan ha'tayrazos. So let's go back, says Rabbi Nassan. I'm going to read these words quickly because Rabbi Nassan is now reviewing what Rabbi Nachman has said until now, and then we're going to go into the new elements of the Torah. Ulevayer ha'inyan katzat, and to explain a little bit of what we're trying to convey, tzrichim lachzor levayer ha'inyan ha'Torah hazos. We have to return back to explain a little bit some of the ideas inherent within this Torah. The klal ha'Torah hi, and the fundamental principle at the core of this Torah is ki mevur be'etz chaim betchila. So it's explained at the beginning of Eitz Chaim. Shekashem yisbarach ratza levroyas ha'olam haya or hakadosh baruch hu ein sof v'lo haya makom levroyas ha'olamos v'hutzrach kavyachol litzamsim or ha'ein sof litzdadim v'nasa chalal apanei b'toicha chalal apanei ba'zeh bara kol olamos. That in the beginning, when it arose within the desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to create the world, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was all saturating, and there was no place for the creation of the worlds, and therefore, so to speak, there was the necessity of God, so to speak, to be mitzamsem, to conceal his infinite light to the sides, to create a vacant space within which the worlds were going to be created. And all of the worlds, v'choy ha'olamus nivru al yidei ha'chachma, kulam b'chachma asita, chachma shebelev is where the emergence of the worlds come from. Kamo shekasav kulam b'chachma asita. As the pasuk says, everything is formed in chachma, in the koyach of ma. V'ikar tachlis briyas ha'olamos haya b'shvil malchus. But ultimately, the fundamental purpose for the creation of the world is so that the lowest place imaginable, which is malchus, the dir b'tachtonim, should be able to receive the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hainu kadei legadlos malchuso, for the sake of revealing the kingship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which can only be done by way of separation. Shezei efshar ki im al yedei ha'olamos. It's only possible by way of the creation of the world, which is at the very same moment the reality of concealment. Olam melashon ha'elem ki ein melech belo am, because in truth the king cannot be fundamentally received in his greatness unless there is something that appears to be separate that is now coming to a place of accepting it. Ubeshvil zeh haya hatzimtzum shel chalal apanoi. And for this very purpose, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mitzamtzim himself to create worlds of otherness that appeared to be in polar opposition to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but all of it was ultimately for the purpose so that there could be a place for the creation of the worlds, so that the gilui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's malchus and the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's malchus could come about specifically from the lowest place. Kol zeh mevuar b'zohar u'b'ksavim. All of this is explained in the Zohar and in the writings of the Mekubalim. The Rabbeinu zal mevayer kol zeh b'chol adam. And Rabbeinu is explaining how this is taking place within the heart of each and every individual in all moments. Ki kol echad me Yisrael hu chelek eloi kai mima'al. That each and every person is an extension of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the neshama is a chelek eloi kai mima'al, mamish. And therefore, we also have to go through this process of tzimtzum. Ve'ikar elikus, and where does the expression of godly light express itself? In our hearts. The liban shel Yisrael is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the innermost point of Ru'usa the liba, that's where we connect most. And just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light is infinite, so too, so to speak, is the infinite light of the heart of each and every Yid that is burning with an infinite desire up towards the infinite. Ki or lahaviyuso ad ein sof, because ultimately the heart yearns after its original source, which is the infinite light, and therefore the heart can never be satisfied because it has an infinite desire. Hainu ein sof ve'ein tachlis l'tshukaso. There's no end and no limit to the desire of the heart. Lefi goydel hislavus halev shel Yisraeli, and in accordance with the over-intensification of the burning desire at the heart of a Jewish person, shu'ad ein sof, which has no limit, lo haya efshar lo la'asos shum avoda. Just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu couldn't create the world without minimizing the infinite light and the allowance of the creation of vessels, so too Isha Yisraeli cannot engage in any practical spiritual activity or motion or investiture without first and foremost being mitzamsem, the burning desire in our heart. We wouldn't be able to reveal any positive traits. We have to sacrifice that notion of perfection so that we can actually create something actual. We wouldn't be able to reveal anything. Because as a result of the great intensity of the heart's yearning up towards the infinite and the infinite yearning of the heart, there was no possibility of doing anything whatsoever. This is exactly what we mean when Hashem says that in the beginning of the creation of the world, there was no room for creation because the infinite light saturated all spaces. Because everything was infinite. Kibriyas ha'olamos, because the creation of the worlds, hein hamidos, just as the worlds are created out of concealment, oilam elashon ha'elem, so too the midos are the worlds. Every midah, every mood, every trait, every experience, every feeling is a mitzias, it's a world, it's an akan and abiyah, it's all of the worlds in one, and it's a new opportunity to reveal the malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this place. And it's only capable through the concealment of the all-encompassing intensity. Hashem Yisparach roitze ba'avodaseinu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants our avoda. He doesn't want our infinite yearning. That's natural. What HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants is our tzimtzum, our avoda, our willingness to step out of Bina into Malchus, in spite of the fact that it appears to be a profound descent into practicality. But nevertheless, we're armed with the knowledge that it's specifically within the lowest level of practicality of Malchus that we're going to be able to reveal the highest light, which is the purpose of the tzimtzum. And when a person is mitzamsem, the burning intensity of their heart, then we allow for an empty space to remain in the heart, in the aspect of libi chalal bekirbi. My heart is empty within me. Shezehu sod chalal hapanui shehaya betchila sabriya. That is exactly reminiscent and reflective of the chalal hapanui that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had created also in order to create the world. And just as with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chalal, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu re-enters in the kav or ein sof, so too, once we're mitzamsim ourselves, then our midos can emerge. Then the good deeds and the good things and the avoida, even though it appears to be so mitzumsum and so separate from the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how is it that I can now have to break my mind on the practical details of this thing which feels so insignificant? It's specifically there where the midos tovos are revealed. Sheim sod brias ha'ilamos, which is the secret of the creation of the worlds. Shaya b'toich chalal hapanui hanal. The creation of midos tovos within the empty space in the heart that takes shape after minimizing the infinite light is just like the worlds that take shape within the chalal hapanui after HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzamtzim his infinite light. Ki hamidos hein ha'ilamos. Again, the midos in the person are like the worlds that HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates. Rather, they are the worlds that HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates. Hainu ki al yidei hatzimtzum, through the tzimtzum, through the contraction, through the minimization, through the calming of that intensity, shetzamsem es or hislahavus, that we are mitzamsem, we contain the burning desire at the heart of ourselves. Al yidei zeh nasa b'chinas chalal hapanui. It's this way that we create an empty space within our heart in the aspect of libi chalal b'kirbi. V'al yidei zeh hu oived es Hashem yisbarach b'hadrag v'mida. And it's like this that I'm able to then come and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a measured and organized way. Like the Heilig Rav Yisrael Salanter said, when he came to see where his son was holding, he didn't go to the base medrash to see the hislavas and his limud. He went to his room to see the organization of his shoes. It's specifically within the minutia and the application of the details that we have the greatest capacity to migala kvod shemayim in the deepest way imaginable. The ikar bias ha'ilamos. And then we go in and we continue to do good deeds and reveal good positive traits, which are the creation of the worlds within the chalal hapanui and the leiv. The way that we're mitzamseim the heart, the original beginning is Chachma, but like we said at the beginning of the Torah, it's the Chachma Shebelev. It's not just Chachma, it's the Chachma that empties into Bina, because ultimately Bina is going to be the place that we have the ability to create new worlds for ourselves. So what does it mean that the main creation of the world was with Chachma? As if to say that the way we're going to fill those midos in our hearts are with Chachma. Zehu b'chinas ma she'ikar avodas Hashem liskois lemidos ma'asem tovim v'al yedei she'shomer ha'chachma shebelev. This is what it means that in order to be a functional person, in order to maintain a semblance of positive orientation, good midos, and good deeds, it's only when we remember and we guard the Chachma Shebelev, we guard the delicate awakening and still small voice of Bina in the heart that is perpetually whispering, do good things, do good things. Shuvu banim shoivavim. The Hururei Tshuva that are oile from a person's heart at every moment. Chazal tell us that every day there's a baskol that's Yotze Mehar Choyrev that's announcing to the world that each and every person should return. So the Baal Shem Tov and the Gra both ask the same question. If nobody hears it, then what's the point? And both of the Nevi'im are misnave in the same lashon, that what it is the Hururei Libo of the Adam that is being ma'oyer them to return. We have to guard that positivity, that point of positivity that perpetually reminds us that yes, we have to be mitzamseim the inner light so that we can create the semblance of good deeds. And that's going to be through the Chachma Shebelev, meaning to say the Machshava Shebelev, the Machshavas Tovos. Shetzrichim l'shmor ma'oid ha-Machshava Shebelev. We have to guard it so carefully when we create an opening within our heart and we allow ourselves to undergo the process of world building, to create a world that we can reveal the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in. The prerequisite is that we must guard the wisdom of the heart. We must ensure that the bina of the heart is perpetually on guard, ensuring that its it's only machshavas tovos. That's the chachma of the leiv. That's the ikr of the yetzer. Ki machshavas tovos are the yetzer atov, and machshavas ros are the yetzer hara. Meaning to say, when a person is choshev machshavas tovos, shezeu b'chinas chachma shebelev, if I'm guarding the chachma in my heart, and I'm thinking a positive thought, and I'm drawing down illumination into this new empty space within my heart, azai al yedei zeh zoiched lepu'ulos umidos tovos. Then I'm going to merit to engage in positive things within this moment of consciousness, which is the secret of transforming the dalet into a hey. Azai al yedei zeh zoiched lepu'ulos umidos tovos. Meaning to say, this is the bechina of hiskalus habriya, the revelation of the world, meaning to say the midos within the chalal hapanui, specifically through the chachma shebelev, by maintaining the clarity of thought. Shu bechinas machshavas tova shebelev. Aval keshachoyshev machshavas ros chas v'shalom. But if a person doesn't guard the chachma shebelev and they begin to think negative thoughts, this is the element of being matamtem and mekalkel the chalal shebelev. We destroy the world, and the world becomes a world of destruction. Almin decharivu, worlds of desolation, in the secret of the chalal hapani without illumination. Va'azayu matamtem hachalal shebelev, and then we're matamtem when we draw the tipshus halev into that heart, bechinas arlas halev, and we cover over the heart, and it becomes a lev ha'evan, and this world goes into nothingness. V'zeu bechinas kilkul habriya, and this is when the new creation, the new possibility of me creating a new world is a missed opportunity, and it goes into more of destruction. Shainu al yedei chachma shebelev, that takes place al yedei, the misappropriation of the chachma shebelev. The whole ikar ha'avodah shetzrichim letzimtzum hanal. The main avodah that a person has to do is understand the secret of the tzimtzum of the heart, the paradoxical descent away from spiritual clarity into the positions of losing sight of clarity, because it's specifically there that we'll be able to grow on the other side and reveal the midos and the maisim tovim, which is the secret of Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu lios ladir betachtoinim. We have to learn the secret of tzimtzum, and we have to learn how to be machshav machshavos tovos k'dei lizkois l'maisim tovim umidos tovos. The ikar is to quiet the intensity of the heart, allow for a positive thought to then lead me to a positive action and a positive expression. And all of this is ultimately for the very same purpose, which is so counterintuitive, that by concealing the light of God, we're revealing the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because now something that appears to be so devoid and removed from the light of God is actually becoming a receptacle and a shliach to reveal the light of God. And when darkness is revealed to be a vehicle to reveal the light, that reveals the light in a much greater potency than a light that can only be light in places of light as opposed to places of darkness. That by way of meriting good deeds and good actions as a result of everything that we've been talking about, in that place a person is able to accept upon themselves a full and total expression of Malchus Shemayim, which is the bechina of Hiskalus Malchus Yisparach, the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu within the Dir B'Tachtonim, Shenaskala Al Yedei Brias HaIlamos, that takes shape specifically by way of the creation of worlds, meaning the creation of concealment, Shabatoicha Chalal Apanui, within the vacant space, Al Yedei HaChachma Kenis through the positive thoughts that we're going to think. The klal and the general principle is Shebrias ha'elamus va'avodas Hashem yisparach bepu'ulos umidos tovos heim bechinas achas mamish kenis gala'el ba'aven hetiv. Ultimately, what we have to understand is that the notion of Hashem creating the world by way of its tzimtzum and the notion of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu through good deeds and measurable deeds are ultimately reflective completely of one another. The worlds are the midos. Hashem's tzimtzum is our tzimtzum. Mahu af'ata. Just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to be mitzamtzim in order to reveal, so too we have to be mitzamtzim in order to reveal. And then, when I've completed the task of creating a new world and revealing by way of tzimtzum positive actions and positive deeds, that reveal themselves within the empty space in my heart, this is the aspect of Aliyah Shnei Habatim Haniskala El, Mi Imzos. This is the unification of Bina and Malchus and the ascendance of Bina and Malchus back up to the source. Beta Ilav, Beta Tata Haniskala El. Because what's pshat here? Nekeva is tzimtzum, Bina is tzimtzum, Malchus is tzimtzum. The first hey is tzimtzum, the second hey is tzimtzum. How do we create an aliyah? How do we elevate the tzimtzumim? The only way to elevate the tzimtzumim is to reveal the tachlis of the tzimtzum, which is to reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light within the tzimtzum itself. So if we want to be mamtik, the tzimtzum, It's specifically by going through the process of creating the tzimtzum, revealing the fulfillment within the tzimtzum of our heart, and then showing the value of the lower activity, which is the secret of Malchus. And by doing that, we elevate the secret of the tzimtzum of Malchus, which then also reveals the benefit of the tzimtzum of Bina, which is how the tzimtzum of Malchus and Bina, of Miyim Zos, have an ascendancy, because now we see the tachlis of the tzimtzum. The tzimtzum is not just concealment, it's a concealment for the sake of a further revelation, which suddenly reveals to us that all of the degradation and descent associated with the feminine principle of concealment and gvura is ultimately going to be the very site and the incubator of revelation. Mi imzos, the Beta Ilah and the Beta Tata, the lower house and the higher house. Ki eskalus hamalchus ebechinas Beta Tata, because the revelation of Malchus within the empty space within my heart is the revelation of the lower house, betchilas hatzimsum. And he's saying something amazing here. He's saying that the first instantiation of Tzimtzum is Bina, as the Arizal points out in Mavos Sha'arim, Mid Madad B'Sha'alomayim, who measured within the measurements the space for water. Mi, the original light of Bina, is the original Tzimtzum, the expression of Yitzchak, the expression of the Tzimtzum itself. The first instantiation of Tzimtzum, which is Bina, which appears to be such a descent, it has an elevation specifically by revealing that the purpose of all of the descent was to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light down here. She'ikar kavanas hatzimtzum haya b'shvil avodas Hashem Yisparach. That the purpose for the concealment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is for no other reason other than finding HaKadosh Baruch Hu down here. Kadei lizkois legalis malchusa Yisparach, which would have been impossible without the tzimtzum. Va'al kain ein nishlam tikun va'aliyas beis ilah ad sha'oila beis tata. We cannot reveal the benefit of Bina without first and foremost accessing and utilizing the benefit of Malchus, which is the secret of the purpose of Bina. The purpose of the original Tzimtzum is so that we can find the Kadosh Baruch Hu in the secret of Malchus. And therefore, it's only when we find the Kadosh Baruch Hu in the secret of Malchus that we then retroactively go back up to look at the original Tzimtzum, which was the Bina, to reveal that, wow, the Tzimtzum was not a concealment, but rather it was a purpose of a reestablishment of the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then, through the lower expression of Malchus, there's an aliyah to Bina as well, because now we see how the Tzimtzum was ultimately for the sake of a Giloi. Bina does not have its full actualization and its purposefulness until we ascend from the lowest level of Malchus, to the degree that the Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be Neskala. That this is the main intention behind the creation of the world. And then, when the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kingship is revealed in the lowest place imaginable, it's specifically then, paradoxically, that we're going to reveal the fulfillment of that which takes place above. Even though it's a loftier level, nevertheless it is fully dependent upon the actions down here below in the secret of Avodah L'Tzarech Aliyah. Because then Malchus has the ability of revealing the original purpose of Bina, which is the original Tzimtzum. Beta Ilah v'Beta Tata. Yerushalayim Shamala, Yerushalayim Shamala. In the Bechina of Mi Zois Oile. Who is it that ascends upwards? Mi Im Zois, Chachma and Bina, Leah and Rachel. Ki lo avo be'ir ad b'kirbecha kadosh. That there's no entrance into the realm of Bina b'shleimuso until Malchus itself is refined. She'ena Kadosh Baruch Hu nichnas b'Yerushalayim Shamala. That a Kadosh Baruch Hu does not actualize that revelation of Bina, which is the secret of Bina Liba, until Sheyabani Yerushalayim Shalamata, until the Yerushalayim Shalamata is built in the aspect of Eskalus Malchus Yisparach. And just as Rabbeinu hinted to the fact that ultimately they're one and the same, there's an amazing Maisa that Rav Usher Freund would say over, it was said over in the name of Rav Usher Freund, that there was a Meshugana running around in the streets of Yerushalayim, yelling, Yerushalayim Shalmata is Yerushalayim Shalmala. Yerushalayim Shalmala is Yerushalayim Shalmata. That point of awareness of the unity between Leah and Rachel, the unity of Malchus and Bina, and how they're ultimately rooted in the same expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Chol Zehu B'chinas Tefillah. All of this is ultimately the element of Tefillah, which is the acknowledgement of the deficiency, the tzimtzum, so that I can then take that deficiency and reveal even more of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light that he's found even in a person like myself with deficiency. Shu avoida shebelev. This is the secret of tefillah that comes from the heart. Ki tefillah shebelev hu b'chinas eskalus malchusay b'soicha chalala pani shebelev. Because when I daven properly, when I have a machshava tova, when I focus on the particular aspects of day-to-day experience, asking for food, asking for refuah, asking like a dog that says hav, give me, and even though the Zohar Kadosh sees that as a negative, immature way of tefillah, the Heilige Heilige Rebbe Rayatz said already that halavai, we should be zoichet to the darga of the Kelev who says hav. When we ask for particular objects, we're descending down into a concealment place, a place of malchus, but it's ultimately for the tachlis of revealing malchus shemayim. Like they say, the Heiliger of Pinchas Karitzer, his wife asked him about help finding a housekeeper who would be able to give his wife menuchas hanefesh, and whatever the Yiddish word was what Rav Pinchas Karitzer was davening for, asking in Yiddish for a housekeeper. And the Talmidim heard him, and they were spending the whole week darshaning what remez it was to the shemos in the Arizal's kavanos. What was this implication of the housekeeper? Was it malchus this? Was it malchus that? Until they came to the Rebbe of Pinchas and they said, tell us the secret. And he says, there's no secret here. I'm asking the Kadosh Baruch Hu for help with the housekeeper. Ultimately, that's the secret of the tefillah shebelev, that it's in the human experience of asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for help that we're going to be able to reveal the true potency of the highest levels imaginable of Bina, that which makes us greater than the Malachim, that we have needs, that we need to ask for help in things that appear to be separate and apart from what we would have considered spirituality. And a person has to understand this very, very well. Havein dafka, which is bina. Ki hadvarim amukim ma'od. For the matter is very, very deep. Amukim ma'od, very, very deep. Gesher tsar ma'od. Ma'od have shafal ruach. Right? Tova haaretz ma'od. This doubled ma'od. It's an amukim ma'od. V'Rabbeinu zal kitzer kan v'diber hakol beremes. And Rabbeinu made himself very truncated here, and he was speaking only in hint, command the mechve b'machud, like someone who was looking in through a tiny hole. But someone who has understanding, the matter is very clear. But the most fundamental part of all of this is to be mekayim kipshuto mamish, to be mitzamsim the heart and to do a good deed, and in spite of the fact that it feels like a tzimtzum noira, to realize that this is the ikar tafkid. L'shmor atzmei me'oid me machshavas ra'os, protect oneself at all counts from negative thinking. Ki machshavas ra'os hem ikar hayetzahara. The essential place of the Yetzirah is the negative thinking. In the bechina of Yetzir Labish, a creation that goes completely to negativity. Al kein srichim lishmor machshavtoi ma'oid. A person must guard their mind intensely. Lahachriach atzmai tamid lachshav machshavas tovos. This is the cognitive theory, so to speak, of Rabbeinu, which we're not going to get into now, but the utilization of just forcing the thought, of shifting the thought, of manipulating the thought to think something positive, not getting caught up in the depth of the thought or the thickness of the thought, but simply pushing the thought and thinking something else positive. Shehim bechinas Yetzirah Tov, to connect oneself to the Yetzirah Tov. Lizkois la'asois ha'idezeh maisim tovim umidos tovos, to merit through this doing good deeds and positive things. Le'espala b'kavana, to daven with intentionality. La'asois tshuva, to return back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ubetchila tzrichim letzamsim es lavas libo, and in the beginning of the journey, when a person wants perfection for themselves and for the rest of the world and for everyone around them, we have to silence that intense burning of the heart. Shelo yivar yoter midai, that we shouldn't be mevutel with the riboy oros and all of the desires for perfection. Kitzrichim la'avedas Hashem yisbarach b'hadraga v'mida daika, because the tachlis of being a ben adam is specifically to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu by way of minimization and midos and simsum. V'shar kol hadrachim hakadoshim v'hatoyrim v'ha'etzos hanachonos, and it's specifically here where all of the other pathways of avodas Hashem and the holy teachings and all of the positive insights are going to take shape, because sheyacholim lahoitzi mitoich divrei Torah hakadosh ha'anay razos, we can take so much insight out of this teaching. And there's so much more to say in all of this. And a little bit more is explained elsewhere. Because there's not enough time at our disposal to explain even one word of his holy words. That's enough for this for now. So be'emes chevra, be'emes, we can't miss out on the next part of the Torah. We also can't finish the next part of the Torah. So what I think we're going to do is, as meshugana as it is, we're going to give a third part of the Torah on Monday, and we'll be mashlim the Torah. I'm going to ask in the chat just to see if that's what Chaver want to do, but I think it's important to be mashlim this Torah because it goes into a place of tainug, and it goes into a place of dimyon, and it goes into a place of menucha, and it goes into a place of questioning and efo and vaya of the nefesh, and the secret of rikudim, and the secret of tzitzis and tcheles and yayin and the tahom and the emptiness within the mind and the heart. So we're not going to miss out on these teachings. So Be'ezras Hashem, we will be mashlim this teaching next week. Be'ezras Hashem.